It's January 1st, 2026. Amazing but true. And while the world stops to celebrate, the geopolitical reality of Israel knows no pauses. 2025 has not simply been a period of time, it has been a structural metamorphosis for the state of Israel. Israel's experiences over the past year are unmatched in modern history. It has gone from a war of attrition to a complete redefinition of national survival. If you review this past year, you find some very striking facts. Israel dismantled the threat from Gaza, survived a direct war with Iran, and brought back as many hostages alive as it could. And it knew how to take advantage of the milestone that humanity is reaching right now. I'm referring to artificial intelligence, which has stopped being just a theory in tests and trials to become a technological development that will undoubtedly change the history of humanity and which Israel has managed to capitalize on very well thanks to its entrepreneurial capacity. A topic that will undoubtedly be vital and something very important, which is happening right now while you are watching this analysis. And the thing is, in Tehran, Iran, there is a movement of ballistic missiles that, far from reaching a military target, is aimed at ensuring the survival of the dictatorship, which is suffocating directly from within, since right now Iran is in turmoil. The people have risen up against the dictatorship, and it's unlikely that the regime will stand idly by. We'll get to this critical point in a moment, but first let's look at what the year 2025 has brought us. The event that divided not only 2025, but we could say that part of modern Israeli history was precisely the 12-day war. In June, Israel broke a decades-old taboo by taking the conflict directly to the heart of the Iranian regime. Operation Break the Shield, which took place from June 13 to 24, was not a skirmish. It was a show of force, where Israel eliminated 11 key scientists from the Iranian nuclear program, 30 regime security chiefs, and struck 100 targets. Among nuclear centers, laboratories, multipurpose factories, warehouses, military centers, airports, government centers, and missile launch sites. In short, we all witnessed one of the most complex and devastating air and intelligence operations in modern history. There's a connection here that many people don't see. That war wasn't won just with airplanes, it was won in cyberspace. Israel showed that the Iranian regime has an outdated and vulnerable digital infrastructure. However, the lesson for Israel was clear. Dependence on external logistics has its limits. Those 12 days of fighting depleted supplies, forcing Israel to accelerate its technological independence. The United States, for example, used 25% of its missile reserves, the high-end missiles, precisely during those 12 days in order to help Israel protect itself from the fierce Iranian attack, which was quite forceful. The analogy here is clear: Israel. It's like a boxer with one of the best punches in the world, but if he fights another round, he'll run out of breath, because the one who supplies the oxygen lives 10,000 kilometers away. And let me bring to the table some important and outstanding facts from this 2025 so we can recap everything. The year had just begun in the midst of a very complex security situation. In the month of March, the cybersecurity company Wise was sold to Google for $32 billion. All this occurred during a three-front war. Global capital reaffirmed that the Israeli mind is the safest asset in the market. A few months later, on May 13th, Mohammed Sinwar, younger brother of the well-known Yahya Sinwar, was eliminated. The fall of Mohammed. With Hamas's organized command structure ending, Israel shifted from a major offensive to targeted cleanup operations. Many thought this would be the end of the war, but it was the beginning of a much more complex phase. It was the year when the Israel Defense Forces shifted from conquest to structural cleanup, to literally dig out Hamas, who spent the entire year hiding beneath the structure of, he has said that the government of Israel, that the president of Israel, the Israeli government, that Israel, the president, has said Israel, the Israeli government, has not been able to make the president. In 2025, the Yellow Line took center stage. Israel didn't occupy the entire area. Gaza created a smart security border that has allowed for the first time in 2 years since the war began. In 2023, the south of Israel breathed without the constant fear of a massive infiltration. The analogy is this: Israel learned that it's not about killing the wasp, but about destroying the nest so that it can't be rebuilt. It was a bitter lesson, but today the communities in the south are flourishing again. In June, while chaos erupted with Iran in the war, a major internal political crisis happened after 12 days. The debate over ultra Orthodox conscription tested Israeli democracy like never before. Israel showed that it can be at war on the outside and still maintain its democratic debate on the inside, no matter how painful it may be. On October 13th, Israel received the last living hostages. That day, one of the deepest wounds was closed. October 7th allowed the nation to begin looking toward reconstruction. We witnessed a number of operations that Israel began to publish, which I myself shared with you on the channel. They are there to keep a living memory of what Israeli capability is, of what intelligence is, and what the Israeli special forces are, which, as I have always known, go after every last one of the brothers. A lot has happened, and listing everything would make this video too long, which isn't the goal. But what is true is that we have witnessed all the military advancements that have taken place here in Israel. Precisely forced to move forward, forced to develop technologies that allow it to survive against so many enemies. And just about 48 hours ago, the first operational iron beam system was delivered, the laser era, which only belonged to science fiction movies. Officially started, Israel has deployed the robust laser system throughout the country. Something that will undoubtedly change not only Israeli defense but also the context of future wars. Soon they will forget about me. Will we see Israeli fighter jets firing laser beams instead of missiles like Star Wars ships? And this is where many might say Israel has won and the danger has passed. Well, that's a rather convenient interpretation. Israel has won tactically, but strategic victory is still a complete puzzle. Several factors must be considered to claim Israel has won a war. 2025 also left economic scars. The debt rose drastically and the social divide hasn't completely healed. The question is whether technology can replace social cohesion if we are even more critical. 2025 was also the year when Israel had to accept that its military leadership from 2023 had to go. The mass resignation of Alevi, the heads of Shin Bet and Mossad, was not an act of nobility, it was a biological necessity for the country. This year also made it clear that Israel can innovate under fire. But the challenge of 2026 is not only to defend the borders with lasers, but to build the internal fabric which was stretched almost to the breaking point. In August, we entered 2026 with a game-changing factor: artificial intelligence applied to life and to war. Israel is not only investing in artificial intelligence for everything related to war, for everything related to its security and defense systems. It is investing to preserve. A highly valued sector here in Israel is applied life sciences. This year alone, the health sector received $2.7 billion in investment for artificial technology. Companies like OnCount Host are using AI to make medicine predictive, not just reactive. Israel is advancing health while defending its territory on the military front. Artificial intelligence has allowed Israel to reduce human error. The autonomous systems that are now patrolling the famous yellow line in Gaza detect threats before the human eye can process them. By 2026, Israel's bet is on an invisible defense, a network of sensors that makes the cost of attacking Israel prohibitive for any enemy. So what awaits Israel in this new year? First, a full leadership renewal after the commanders left following October 7. Israel is introducing a new generation of generals who are not familiar with complacency. Second, the Trump factor, the 20-point peace plan is the roadmap. Israel has an ally in the White House who demands quick and definitive results. 2026 will be the year when it will be determined whether the Palestinian Authority can be reformed. Israel will maintain permanent military control over the strategic nodes. What is clear is that in no scenario is there room for Hamas. So what we will see are more operations, not only in Gaza but also in Judea and Samaria, where Hamas remains active. Little by little, it is being eliminated and suffocated in Gaza. And finally, let's talk about what's currently shaking Iran, which is in the midst of a protest, a historic and monumental protest. The Iranian people have lost their fear of the regime as protests erupt once again throughout Iran. Voices from within the country describe a nation not only burdened by economic hardships, but also pushed to a psychological point of no return. When protesters took to the streets of Iran this week amid chants of anger against the supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and out of anger over a collapsing economy. A slogan that was once considered politically unspeakable returned, and the sounds of crowds chanting it filled the air across Iran. Havid Shah, long live the Shah. Videos sent from Iran showed protesters openly chanting in support of the dynasty. Pahlavi, who is currently in exile since the fall of the last Shah, Mohammad Javid, calls for the fall of the Islamic Republic, which is supported by the current regime. For a regime built on the overthrow of the monarchy and the elimination of the Pahlavi legacy, this chant is not only offensive but existentially threatening. Is it a sign that anger has transcended dissatisfaction with economic policies, or the personalities that have become a rejection of the Islamic Republic itself, pushed by the entire regime? The protests erupted last Sunday after the powerful merchant class of Tehran's bazaars closed their shops in protest against Iran's growing financial crisis. But pay attention, because the regime has responded by moving an arsenal of ballistic missiles. It's not to attack its own people, it's a desperate distraction measure. Israelis fear that Tehran's strategy is to provoke Israel into responding to a minor provocation made by them. They could even declare all-out war. And with that, they could silence internal protests under the excuse of treason against the homeland and try to unite the population against the Zionist enemy. A very logical strategy that fits well with the way the regime operates. It's the last resort of a window system with ministry regime moving a ballistic. No, not to attack. It's a disruptive model. It's a disruptive model not to attack. Israel has closed 2025 as a nation that has learned to live in constant victory, but under a perpetual threat. Peace at the beginning of 2026 is not the absence of conflict, but technological and moral superiority over those who still seek its destruction before the end. A fact that defines the spirit of this country despite the 12-day war and international pressure. Throughout 2025, this year ended with a 15% increase in migration. A clear example of the anti-Jewish effect that pro-Palestinian propaganda spread like poison throughout Europe, and that has caused a new peak in the migration of Jews from the diaspora, going back to Israel, and in the long run, this simply makes Israel much stronger. These Jews returning from the diaspora are educated, they are academics, they are entrepreneurs, they bring a lot of money, scientists, and many are military personnel. In other words, what has happened is a new wave of Jews returning home with a high intellectual level, with a high monetary capacity, in other words, with a much greater ability to contribute to the country. And seen this way, what all this anti-Jewish movement has caused is simply to bring people back and strengthen Israel even more. Jews don't come to Israel for comfort, they come for a purpose. So fasten your seatbelts, because the journey of 2026 is about to begin. And for sure, one way or another, it's going to be quite eventful. All we can do now is entrust ourselves to the Shomer Israel, the guardian of Israel, Subscribe to this channel so you don't miss what 2026 has in store for us. Share it and don't leave without giving it a like. See you.